What's going on, guys? It's Adonis, and since episode 20 just wrapped up, we did our recap, we know who Savitar is, but there's still some things that we need to know. When is Savitar from? How is Barry Savitar? And why does he need to kill Iris? If you guys like the Flash TV show and like reactions and talks about the show, make sure you hit that subscribe button and have notifications turned on so you don't miss any future Flash content. Now, even though I really wanted Wally to be Savitar, I've been working on two videos, one on Wally being Savitar and one on Barry being Savitar. And this is obviously the Barry being Savitar since we know he's Savitar. So first we're gonna go over some of the mythology that the show creates around Savitar. So let's get into that now. So we first kind of get an idea of who Savitar is from Jay Garrick. Jay talks about that he's the first speedster with speed. Now he does go on and tell Barry that Barry's the first person that Jay has actually met, that has met Savitar, actually seen him in person. Everybody else has kind of been through stories and mythology. Now he does go on to say that he's shown up on other Earths before, and also states that he is now challenging Barry because he potentially poses a threat to his power. Now during this explanation, we see this figure, now that we know who is Barry, holding the Philosopher's Stone over his head like this. We see this kind of blue aura go around him, and then it flashes and it shows him again holding the Philosopher's Stone, but now in the Savitar suit. Now this immediately ties to Julian's explanation of the Philosopher's Stone, basically stating that it alone grants people metahuman abilities. And he also states that Savitar was the first metahuman with speed ability. Now later on in the series, Savitar is actually talking through Julian, explaining kind of why Savitar's so upset. Obviously, Barry put him in this Speed Force prison. When Barry asks him, "What do you want?" he said, "Everything. Everything you took from me, I want back." It's a really vague statement, but now that we know that he's Barry, there are some things that actually may make sense with. He then states that once he takes it back, he is going to destroy Barry. Now in this next section, we're gonna talk about what happened when Barry goes to the future. And I'm gonna call future Barry Emo Barry, just for the sake of not getting them mixed up. Now in this timeline in the future, nobody knows who Savitar is besides Killer Frost. Nobody on Team Flash has any idea. And I want you to remember this for future. Now current timeline Barry is asking Emo Barry for help.
You want answers, Barry? How's this? You will go back. You will do everything that you can think of to save her. You're even gonna create time remnants of yourself, but he's gonna kill them all mostly.
And Emo Barry basically tells him, look, you're gonna go back into time, you're gonna try to fight Savitar, you're gonna fail, you're even gonna try to create time remnants of yourself, and he will kill them all mostly. That is the key word in that phrase. Mostly, which means that there may be one or two remnants that do not get killed by Savitar. Now, one of the other big key things, obviously, that we learn in the future is Tracy Brand and the device that she creates to help them lock Savitar in the Speed Force. Now, fast forward to episode 20, we find out some more shocking news. Now, Tracy Brand discovered that the suit that Savitar is in is made out of something called a strange metal. Now, she states that this metal can disperse a mass amount of heat, basically stating without this suit, he may be causing harm to himself. So now with all this information, let's try to analyze where Savitar or future Barry is from. Now, based on what the show has told us about time remnants, a remnant is a copy of you from the future that either helps you and aid in a current event that maybe you couldn't stop in that timeline that your future self is from. So during the end of season 2, when you see Barry create a time remnant that dies is actually from another timeline in which he failed to stop Zoom. So he comes back in time to that exact moment in time to then help that Flash finish Zoom off. And once he helps destroy the machine and dies, the current timeline Flash that we know of and have been watching, his storyline will continue. That's why we never see him not succeed and go back into time to try to stop it again. This adds a little bit more simplicity to the story. And the other example of this is the Reverse Flash. We obviously see him die at the end of season 1, but then he ends up in season 2, episode 11. How is that? There's a link in the description for a video that explains that, but long story short, because we're watching the current timeline of Barry Allen's story, we then see the Reverse Flash come from the future for the first time to see what era Barry Allen was from. So just because he died in season 1, he still hasn't even been born yet. So this is the first time that we're seeing him in that era, even though we saw him die in the first season. But like I said, there's a link in the description that kind of explains this at length, so if it's a little confusing, it will actually help you out a lot. So how does this pertain to Future Flash, aka Savitar? Now, based on the facts that we know from episode 20, Killer Frost and the Flash both state that Savitar has already lived through everything that we're watching right now. Which means if Savitar is a time remnant of Barry, he could have not been the one that died at the end of season 2 because he has not lived through this. This was pre-Flashpoint, this is post-Flashpoint. Completely different timelines. So that remnant would have never lived what Barry is living through right now. So that means that we have yet to see Barry create the remnant. Now, since we know this remnant can't be from the past because he has to have lived what's going on right now, the biggest question now is, why would a remnant be created before the Savitar fight that would become Savitar? Like, why would Barry go back in time to try to change the event, basically creating a remnant, and then that version of him go run off to become Savitar? Because he's trying to prevent Iris from dying. So why would the remnant want Iris to die? So now that we have all of the mythology and current events of Savitar compiled, let's try to figure this out. And this is where everything will start going to more of headcanon. And if you don't know the term, it's more of like predicting what could be, kind of creating your own theory based on probability. So let's say Barry creates a time remnant and that remnant tries to stop Savitar and fails. But let's say he doesn't die. What if he then goes back into time to try to get the Philosopher's Stone himself to increase his power? And in the process, the stone actually turns him into a godly type figure, makes him feel and think and act like how Savitar acts now. What if the stone pulled out of him what was already in him already? Maybe the subconscious feeling of him being a god, or enhancing his abilities to a level at which he now feels himself as a godly figure. Maybe looking at the world and the universe completely differently and basically saying, you know what? I'm gonna run it. Now let's tie that into what Tracy Brand was talking about. Let's say the remnant now has this newfound ability, this newfound speed, but he can't run at his own max velocity because he starts to rip himself apart, which would explain why half of his face looks like it's melting away. So that remnant decides to go to the future to find something that he can actually be in to protect his body from the immense speed and heat that he is now generating. Now with him being in the future with this suit wreaking havoc, whatever version of the Flash was at that time locks him in the Speed Force. And after being trapped in the Speed Force for so long and thinking about what he wants to do to get his revenge, he knows exactly what to do. He's gonna go back into time and destroy the Flash. And how does he do it? By killing Iris. Now let me try to help you out with this and why I think this makes the most sense. This would be the same version of the Flash that sent the message for the alien invasion, and that was from 2056. Now I know some of you may be thinking the future version of the Flash is the emo Barry one that we saw, that's the only future version of the Flash, but that's actually not true. The 2056 version of the Flash that we saw earlier in the season could have been the one that locked Savitar away. And some of you are saying, well, Iris still would have been dead. And that again is not entirely true either. The only reason why I say that is our current timeline Barry knows the identity of Savitar. The emo version of Barry never did. So their futures are completely different. It just so happens that the version that Barry saw was the one that lost Iris as well to Savitar. And remember, they were stating earlier in the season that time is always changing. Nothing's really set in stone. Now, do I agree that this is super complex and that there's probably a lot of plot holes that they kind of created for themselves? Definitely. But to me, that's the only thing that really makes a lot of sense outside of it being a paradox type of a character, which basically means that Barry loses Iris, eventually goes on this rabbit hole, becomes Savitar, and goes back to kill Iris again. Like, I just don't see how that makes sense for Savitar just to come back to kill Iris so he can become Savitar. I feel like there's probably something else other than that whole paradoxical type of a scenario. So let me know your guys' thoughts on Barry becoming Savitar, what your theories are as well. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any more future Flash content. And if you guys like the video, hit that thumbs up button, show your boy some love. And if you want to check out the last video, the link will be right here to the side. All right, guys, till next time. See you later.